Market manipulation. Yes, also this. What do you think makes the stock exchange crash from one day to another? Well, people that have an enormous amount of resources to be able to manipulate the market. And do you know who is the biggest market manipulator in the world? It's the Vatican, due to their immense fortune, especially in gold. And this other card, I don't know if you can see what is in the picture. Take a look, there's a bigger fish that's eating a smaller one, and so on to the smallest fish. It's talking about banks here. As you see on the first fish, it has the yen, and the next one has the pound sterling, and the next one, it has the dollar. But what about the last one? And the people say the euro. The euro? Victor asks. And they all start to doubt because you can't see clearly what symbol it is. But Victor says, no, no, you are right. It is something that looks like the euro. But the thing is that these cards are from 1995. And the euro was created in the 2002. So how did they know that Europe was going to have a coin as well? And at what point are we now where we are hearing about North America having a coin called Nero, or even Phoenix they are thinking of calling it. In Latin America they are talking about another kind of coin. And did you know that these plans were from Freemasonry many years ago? And now they are being forged one behind the other. Because there will come a moment where they will need to fuse all the coins together in one global coin. And that, of course, is easier when there are less types of coins around the globe. With one only economy, there will be one only owner. Monopoly. Monopolies will be created. And you are seeing this now. In the year 1995, there weren't so many, but at these days we are saying one and another and another. This was also said by Ellen White. And now take a look at this. This is written by Ellen White from Selected Messages. The trades unions will be one of the agencies that will bring upon this earth a time of trouble such as has not been since the world began. The work of the people of God is to prepare for the events of the future, which will soon come upon them with blinding force. In the world, gigantic monopolies will be formed. Men will bind themselves together in unions that will wrap them in the folds of the enemy. A few men will combine to grasp all the means to be obtained in certain lines of business. Trades unions will be formed, and those who refuse to join these unions will be marked men. I don't know if you're seeing the fulfillment of all these things, but I certainly am. The trades unions and confederacies of the world are a snare. Keep out of them and away from them, brethren. Have nothing to do with them. Because of these unions and confederacies, it will soon be very difficult for our institutions to carry on their work in where? In the cities. This is because the trade unions work basically in the cities. My warning is, keep out of the cities. Build no sanitariums in the cities. Educate our people to get out of the cities into the country, where they can obtain a small piece of land and make a home for themselves and their children. And these recommendations, the Adventist people are not paying much attention. There are some that do, but only a few. If she is describing a chaotic situation for the Adventist people, it goes along with everything that we've been talking about buying, selling, about keeping the Saturday. So where should we be living? In the cities? No. And much less in the big cities. Ellen White describes that we should pass and go from the bigger cities to smaller ones, and from the smaller cities to small towns, and from the small towns to the countryside. Because the cost of maintenance is going to be very high, and only the ones that have a small piece of land will be able to subsist. More or less, at least more or less, until the moment arrives where it has to go to the mountains. by cause of the decree, like the one we were talking about in the book of Esther. Ellen White says that we must go to the cities to do what? To preach. And our churches, where must they be? In the cities. As proof of a bastion that God still is speaking. But we shouldn't be there. And from here I urge you to follow Ellen White's advice. Get out of the big cities. And if we stay, sooner or later we will regret it. Our restaurants must be in the cities, for otherwise the workers in these restaurants could not reach the people and teach them the principles of right living. And for the present we shall have to occupy meeting houses in the cities, but ere long there will be such strife and confusion in the cities that those who wish to leave them will not be able. She says that they will not be able to get out. Do you know how Ellen White describes the Adventists that stay in the big cities at the end of times? She says they will end up living as beggars. And the people will say to them, "Look at you that follow so much God, and look how He helps you." And the fault will be ours for not paying attention. And even though God will still have mercy for His people, we must be preparing for these issues. Now, energy crisis. We have seen this many times and we will see more of it. And take a look, where are the cars going to? They are going to gasoline pumps. And who do they belong to? Well, you can see it clearly with the triangle in the center of the image. If you take a look at the owners of the big petrol companies, then you will end up finding the same people that own practically everything. And this card, World War III, we will see this also. You know, I have some declarations from someone from the Israeli government where he said that we are already in World War III, but the thing is that the people are not realizing it. Because this third World War is a bit different. Because it is a war that wears out on time, a bit here and a bit there. And that it is mining slowly all the countries, the economies of the countries. How is Spain defraying its military in all these countries? Is it because Spain has a machine that just prints out money at their will? No, that comes from my pocket and all yours as well. They say that it is for peace, of course, but do you think really that the troops are there for peace reasons? Or is there something behind that isn't spoke about? Like drug markets, petrol, gas, apart from the people that ignore all this and are just doing what they are being told. And take a look at this one, Vatican City, and look what the Pope has on his mitre. Impressive, eh? The leader of the Illuminati, the papacy. Well, if this one made an impact on me, take a look at this other one, Messiah. This is the final objective of their whole plot. And without this objective, we wouldn't understand anything at all of why they are doing all that they are doing. They are working so that their Messiah arrives, and that is not our Jesus. This is Lucifer, to be adored as Jesus in his place. He is their leader and he is their Lord. And take a look at their faces. They are all radiant, illuminated by a light that comes from above. Ellen White says that Satan's appearance will be glorious, but that God will not allow him to imitate completely the arrival of Jesus Christ. But he will do everything that is in his hand to confuse us all. And you know, which religions are waiting for a Messiah? All of them. All of them, from any continent. They are all waiting for a Messiah. It is true that some certain ethnies or religions have more strength or are known more for this, like the Muslim religion or the Christians. And are they not going to be fooled, all of them? Because if we don't understand that these people are Satanists and that they are preparing this arrival, this character will appear and will deceive us all. In the great controversy, Ellen White writes, in different parts of the earth, Satan will manifest himself among men as a majestic being of dazzling brightness, resembling the description of the Son of God given by John in the Revelation. The glory that surrounds him is unsurpassed by anything that mortal eyes have yet beheld. The shout of triumph rings out upon the air. Christ has come! Christ has come! The people prostrate themselves in adoration before him, while he lifts up his hands and pronounces a blessing upon them, as Christ blessed his disciples when he was upon the earth. And furthermore, Satan is not permitted to counterfeit the manner of Christ's advent. And in other places she describes with what image Satan will appear. She says that he will appear with a great appearance of goodness, that he will do miracles, he will heal people that he or his fallen angels have made ill before. He will heal the illness that they have caused previously. So there will be false miracles, but the people will be completely captivated. And he will be the one to say, ladies and gentlemen, the Sunday is the day of worship, and not the Saturday. Therefore, that minority is the one that is bringing forth to you all the problems there are in the world. This is happening because of them, because you are allowing these people to keep the Saturday. And this is prophecy, this is written, and of course you know what will happen afterwards. Bible text in Revelation. Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. So if you're playing a game and it's about to end and you're losing 1-0, then what are you going to do? You'll go against your rival with everything you have to change the results of the game. And this is what Satan is doing. There's something that I want to tell you, and this sometimes is misunderstood in our church. It is commented quite a lot that Satan is doing all this knowing that he's going to be destroyed. Did you know that Ellen White wrote that Satan thinks that he can change destiny? And curiously, all the Masons, the Freemasons that I have spoken with, they have all told me the same thing. That besides the fact what I had shown them with the Bible studies is true and is coming to be true, everything that is said, they carry on thinking that they can change with their intercessions the becoming of the world. Satan is influencing them with the same thinking. That is why Satan is fighting to the end. And sometimes we have this concept wrong, we have it mistaken. We might think, no, he just wants to take with him as many as he can possible. But he really thinks that he can take down the realm of God. This is another conference, the visit of the Pope Benedict XVI to Australia. And do you see anything significant here or interesting? And I'm not referring to the Pope's face, of course. I had told you before that he had gone to the Cathedral of St. Mary in Sydney, and that image there is of St. Mary. And can you see the pedestal? Can you see what the pedestal has beneath? At the bottom it has fleur-de-lis. The fleur-de-lis is a symbol very used in Freemasonry. Have you looked at the shield of the country of Spain before? In the center, in the middle of what supposedly represents the different autonomies, there is something there. There are some fleur-de-lis. Why is this? Because curiously, by tradition, the royal family in Spain belonged to the Order of Calatrava, which has origins in what everything we are talking about right now, really, and that is in the middle of the shield of Spain. A man says that also in the Cubs and the Boy Scouts it is their symbol. And Victor asks, do you know who created the Boy Scouts? A Freemason. For this reason, when I see certain ways of doing things, trying to do it in similar ways as they do it, it is outrageous. Because our children are not military. We cannot imitate what the others do. But anyway, that is for everyone with their own conscience. What I do want to say is that we have to pay attention to not copy the same things that these people do. Do you know where the fleur de lis is really from? It is from the Bible. The fleur de lis appeared in Solomon's temple. And what does Satan do? He copies to adhere to himself something. I spoke something about what the meaning of the fleur de lis in the conference of the 666, talking about some type of trident and the symbology referring to the 666, but we will see that in some other moment. Someone asks, so if we see the symbol, the fleur de lis, then we have to think that it is all related to Freemasonry? And Victor answers, well, you can sometimes maybe enter a house and there's a carpet in the entrance that, well, usually can have the fleur de lis. Well, I'm not going to think that the house that I'm entering is directly related to Freemasonry. That the people that live there are Masons. I don't know about the maker of the carpet, that's another thing. But when we are talking about certain companies, institutions, then yes, then of course, yes, you can think that the origin is this. Yesterday I was talking with your pastor about this. We were talking about the number 13 that we had also mentioned here, because there are companies that belong to high Freemasons that use in their logo types the number 13. I don't have it with me now to show it to you, but I'll explain it to you so that you can find out for yourselves. For example, Mr. McDonald's, the burger guy, a high Freemason, if you take a look at their logo type on their products, you will see a big M, a big curved M, and beneath it, McDonald's. Well, simply if you get that image and turn it 90 degrees, then you will see a perfect 13. In Movistar, well, you will see the same thing. And this same thing in many other companies. They know how to play with symbols. Of course, when you see these kind of symbologies in big companies, then you can know that the origins have the Freemasonry are involved. But if you're not sure, then you can always look to who are the founders of these companies, and there you'll find out. Someone mentions that the shell of the Camino de Santiago has 13 stripes on it, 13 lines. And Victor says, well, I am preparing a conference about the shell precisely, because it was a symbol of worship to Venus, and it is related to the same satanic symbology. And the Pope also has a shell hanging around his neck as well. And the man in the public asks, and Franco, the dictator in Spain, was he a Mason as well? And Victor says, of course. Although there is a concept that is trying to be sold that Franco was really going against Freemasonry and he was pursuing it. He was a high grade Freemason. Also, it is said that he was not accepted in the Canary Islands, his brother was, and that Franco did not take that well. This was like a politician way of hiding what he had learnt. Do you know the papers that are in Salamanca that supposedly belong to the Catalonian people? Why are they so reclaimed by Catalonia? Because the Republican government of Catalonia, before the lifting of the Francoist government, which was much better because of being a republic, it was a much Christian manner of governing with not having the royalty behind. But it was instigated by presidents that were in Freemasonry and by Mason cabinets. But not all of these papers, most of them, are precisely papers that belong to people that belong to Mason lodges. And that is why they are reclaiming them so much, because people in the Catalonian government, from Pasqual Margall, who is a Freemason and still is, to the ones that we have now, like Carol Rovira and others, well, what do you think they are? The same thing. Now, this happened, look, the 3rd of July of this year. More than €3,000 of fine for criticising the Pope. It says the Pontiff of Rome will visit Australia and the authorities have given new powers to the police to avoid behaviour that could upset Benedict XVI. And up to the point that if you had a t-shirt on that was saying something against the Catholic Church, then this fine was for you. There was the case of a person that was arrested, accused of creating a conflict or a riot. What the boy did was not commented in the news. Only a brief news came out that said the boy had died in prison, and I had a bad feeling about it, because it reminded me of what was prophesied that was going to happen. And this is Australia, this is an Anglo-Saxon country, this is British. That precisely were deported prisoners to that big island, which is Australia, and they were all convicts and they're jailers because there was no one else there, and they were Protestants, and now they are subordinates to the Vatican. And Ellen White said that through civil authority, what was the papacy going to do? Impose. Now, this was a conference where you can extract a lot of information. He's saying that it is available in the DVDs, but these are also in the elgranengaño.com website. Can you see the crucifix here? And take a look at this symbol. Can you see it there? Do you know what this cross and the dagger means? The symbol of whom? Of the Jesuit order. The symbol of the Jesuit order. Someday we'll talk about this. 6. The Pope will complete in New York his visit of 6 days in the United States. By inversion of symbols is how they use them. His visit is the 9th visit of a pontiff to the United States. In the White House, Benedict XVI was received today by Bush in the gardens of the White House with a spectacular ceremony where how many people attended? 13,000 people, according to the data from the US authorities, not from mine. Bush added, in a world where some do not believe anymore that you can distinguish between simple good and bad, we need a message of rejection to this dictatorship of relativism and embrace a culture of justice and truth. Phrases such as these were said in this visit. This thing about one world in one world in one world, he repeated it so many times that when I was with my daughter preparing these images, I didn't know if I was repeating myself or what was happening. The beginning of each phrase was basically the same, but it changed afterwards. You know, there's a methodology to brainwash the congregations that has even been used from the pulpits and has been denounced. The thing is, if a certain concept is repeated successively many times, then finally it comes up into your subconscious as something good. This is complete psychological manipulation. Obama is using similar techniques. Ellen White wrote, in the movements that are made actually in the United States of North America to assure the support of the state to the institutions and practice of the Church, the Protestants are following the footprints of the Papists. Even more, they are opening the door so that the papacy can recover in the Protestant America the supremacy that was lost in the Old World. Now, this is took out from the great controversy. Therefore, the Protestantism will be doing things, but you know who really is behind them. And tomorrow you will see it very clearly when we will talk about Obama. In the UN, Benedict XVI concluded his words reiterating the support of the Catholic Church and the Holy See to the organization. This is the UN. This is the first visit of the head of the Catholic Church to the UN in 13 years. Now hear farewell of the Pope from the stadium of the Yankees in New York. Do you remember this scene? Did you see it on television? It's curious because in the United States many people saw it, but others weren't aware of this event, although it was transmitted over the whole world. As you can see, they were like on a fashion show with the Pope at the front, not stepping on top of what you can see here, as the coloured lines on the floor. The Pope at the front, waving his hands. The floor of the stadium seen from above. Immense representation of the King's Star on top of a dark background, spreading out its 36 rays, which is 2 times 18, another way of representing the 666, which is 6 plus 6 plus 6, empowered and squared, or also 6 times 6. And its outline was a perfect hexagon, another way of representation of this number 6. So with this we have all 3 sixes, as was done in older times on the sculpted papal shields. Did you know that in the old sculpted papal shields they used to represent the 666 with hexagons or with bees? It is impressive how they use very occult symbology to express very clear concepts. And here's something else. In the center of the sign of the sun, which is the symbol of Lucifer, the shield of the Vatican. So it is clear who is giving the power to the papacy. That was there. And do you know how many people were there in the stadium? 60,000 people. This is a view from above. Can you appreciate something else here in this image? Here in this point was where the throne where the Pope sat down. Can you see it better this way? Why this layout? A pyramid with the peak on top and the Pope sitting right exactly in the point where the peak is. They are showing everything. They have shown the 666 through symbology and the all-seeing eye with the Pope sitting on his throne in the peak of the triangle. And no one realizes this except the people that are really informed about this symbology. And if we don't know the secret codes of Satan's symbology, we will stay the same as well. You know, the appreciation of this when people see this on a conference is impressive, because it clearly confirms who is really behind this. And this, do you know where it is? This is the Pope's visit to France. After going to Paris, he went here to the sanctuary of Lourdes. You know, this Lourdes was a virgin like Fatima that would also appear to people on the day's 13th and this kind of stuff. I think here you can see the same as before. The same layout as in the stadium of the Yankees. You know, the stadium belonged to some people that were the Knights of Columbus, that are also men that belong to Freemasonry orders. And the lands that it was built on belonged to the Jesuits. Tarcisio Bersoni, this man on the left, Secretary of State of the Vatican. It says here, in the designation of the different roles, politics has the need of religion. However, when God is ignored, the capability of respecting the right and to recognize the common good starts to vanish. This could be confirmed by the tragic end of all the politic ideologies, including the contrary ones. And it seems to me that it confirms it also the actual financial crisis, he added in allusion to the sudden crash of the Wall Street stock market. Who do you think is really behind the Wall Street stock market crash and all this financial crisis? If we didn't have an understanding of the prophecies and didn't know really about the designs of Satan, we wouldn't know why they are talking about this. Why are they saying this? Is it to earn more money? We wouldn't have a clue. When Satan is to come, there are some requirements that have to be fulfilled. One of them is a chaotic world crisis that the politicians will not be able to solve. And it will be proven that politics is in need of religion. Evidently, we know which one. And that only holds one solution, and is to give a moral power to a man dressed like that, an absolute moral leader. And then the maximum exponent of the Antichrist will appear, and that is Lucifer coming as if he were Christ. And you know, we are nearly in the prelude here. We're already in a great crisis. I don't know if you can see that it's not long for Christ to come. And well, here is some news that also occurred there in Lourdes. What misleads mankind from this perspective is the idol worship, and reason itself can fabricate idols. Do you know what the Pope is saying right now? Which commandments have they eliminated? It is one, basically, which is the second, that says that you will not worship any image. Why do you think they have it eliminated? Think of all the statues that the Church has. And you know what the Pope is saying now? He's saying that the idols basically are worship to money, to materialism, competitiveness, etc. And that is true. On one hand, it is true. But the commandment does not only refer to that. But saying this, they are managing that the Protestants are understanding it in the same way. Subirus, the girl that received the apparition of the Virgin Mary, she affirms that the Virgin Mary appeared to her 18 times, 666, and it happened in 1858. 1 plus 8, 9, plus 5, 14, and plus 8, 22, which is twice times 11. 150 years ago. 1 and 5, 6, and this according to the Catholic tradition. And well, this was the summary of all the conferences. There will be more if it is God's will. The next one will be the 10th of January, which will be about the Synod of Bishops in Rome, where basically they will be organizing the roadmap for the Christianization of all Europe. But I wouldn't call it Christianization, I would instead call it re-Catholization. This has already started, and the most of us haven't even realized it. The pendulum has been allowed to go on one extreme, liberality and whatever you want. Now that pendulum has gone to one end, so that it has to go back to the other. Economic crisis, the moral that plummets the economy, the system of society, marriages, family, jobs, etc. And bam! Where is the pendulum going to lead us now? Once again, just like before. If it's God's will, we will talk more about the crisis and what's behind it. Well, on my behalf, this is it. It's quite late. If you want to make any questions, then you can. Or if you prefer, then we can leave it here. Okay, then tomorrow we start at 11, and we will be analyzing the elections in USA. It is very, very interesting to see. Now, thank you, brothers, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Mañana analizaremos precisamente lo que ha habido detrás de las elecciones USA, porque hay unas cosas tan sorprendentes que no hay palabras para decirlo en un momento. Muchas gracias, hermanos, y Dios os bendiga.
Well, we are going to carry on with the topic, and this is going to be the last one. So we will carry on talking about what is happening right now at these times in 2008 and what the news haven't stopped talking about. You have all seen how, at least in Europe, we have all been shown the image of Obama as a new change, so that the USA can lead a new change globally. And this person seems to lead this change with the image that he represents. And apparently that is why he has won the elections. But we are going to see now why exactly this has happened, and if it really has happened as they say. We all know the role of the United States in the prophecy. Does anyone really think that the prophecies in the Bible around the United States are not going to be fulfilled? It is absurd. If the prophecies have been fulfilled until now, they won't stop being fulfilled. So, can we expect a change depending on who leads in the USA? We could expect it if we didn't know all that we have investigated until now. But we will end up confirming how the media, who belong to the same people that we've been talking about, have been creating a mass public manipulation so that the people will accept something as if it were good when in really it is not. It's a shame I don't have the recording of his first speech, because he said some things that were quite tremendous. Even in one of the statements, one part of it, he talks about his grandmother. And I don't know if you remember, but around 2 days during the elections, he stopped his campaign for those 2 days because his grandmother had died. Well, he's finally elected as the president, and in his speech, he gives thanks to all the people that are not there with him, but he also thanks his grandmother that he says he knows she is watching him. And you can say, well, yeah, so what? But the thing is, his grandmother was dead. How is it that a dead person is watching him? This same thing said by someone else in any other moment is of no importance. But this said by the just elected President of the United States that is supposed to not be Catholic, he is assuring the immortality of the soul as a fact in public, and no one says anything against it. And this has to make us think, because through these speeches and these messages, they plant them in the minds of the people that just accept them since, well, since the President of the United States says it, and they have him as some sort of messiah, then it must be true to them. Well, in the speech, he said many interesting things, but I can't show it to you right now. Well, here we have the winning couple of these elections, Barack Obama and Joe Biden celebrating their victory. And you can think, well, what has this other guy have to do with anything here? We will see it later on. First, we are going to see a series of declarations where the world politics area, rulers from all countries and other institutions, of course, they congratulate Obama and they recognize him as something of a salvation. Here we have Barroso, who you know who he is, and this man wants to assure Obama the support of the European Commission. We will see how through different phases of his election campaign, where he receives support from all these different rulers. But here we can see how he's congratulated by Barroso and Sarkozy as well. And take a look at his final phrase. It says, "His brilliant victory rewards a tireless commitment to the service of the American people." Gordon Brown also does the same. He praises him for his progressive values and his vision of future. The President of Germany, more or less the same. And here it says how the European Union sees in Obama a reinforced transatlantic association. See how the politics that we know and know how is going to occur through the prophecies is that the United States is not going to go alone in this world as the world leader, but will be supported by many countries. And who are these, apart from Australia and Japan that are more further away? It is Europe, and you can see how this person centers everything. Angela Merkel, basically the same thing again. Javier Solana, Obama has given us an impressive lesson. Zapatero, Spain is a faithful friend and ally. Well, I think that you all know that Spain had to be rebuilt after the Civil War, and Spain didn't have the resources enough to do that. And the United States came to save Spain with the Marshall Plan. You might have heard of this. The older people, I'm sure that they have. And Spain wasn't the only country where the USA did this. And this basically means that Spain will always be in debt with the USA, and at the end have to follow their orders. It doesn't matter if their politics is left wing or right wing.
por fuerza estará supeditada a Estados Unidos, porque lo que se le llega a deber es tan impresionante que mande quien mande tiene que seguir el mismo hilo. O sea, no importa si son
NATO underlines the importance of cooperating with the United States. Take a look. Why do you think there is such a strong bloc, a military bloc, between the United States and the European Union, or the NATO in general? What can be the interests behind such a strong military unity? What are the military groups done for? For terrorism? And for what else? For repression? And what else? Basically for wars, isn't it? That is why they are military, to fight in wars. If we don't know enough about the prophecies of the end of times, even that Ellen White explains it very clearly, she says that at the end of times, near to the very end, there will be a moment of a lot of war. And this is very interesting because our biblical prophecies say exactly the same, that there will be many wars at the end of the times, especially one big one at the end, a tremendous war. The military blocs for this have to exist because war cannot be done with only one side or only one nation. Well, something here is already being prepared for. Berlusconi, a great Freemason. Well, actually, I think that of all the people that we've quoted, they are all Freemasons. But anyway, he says the friendship and cooperation between the United States and Italy will grow. The Vatican, let God assist Obama in his responsibilities. The faithful pray so that God may illuminate him and assist him in his great responsibility. And now we're going to see some details. Barack Obama graduated in the University of Columbia and in the prestigious School of Law, Harvard Law School. We could look up for data about these universities and we would see who they are related to. Right, now I'm going to leave it out, but I think you can imagine. In the 110th Congress, he sponsored the legislation related to groups of pressure and electoral fraud, the global warming and nuclear terrorism, and also the return of military personnel to the nation. And here I underline global warming. We spoke yesterday about this briefly, and if it's God will, I hope to present a conference exclusively about the fraud of global warming, to prove that they are behind this movement to accomplish their own objectives. So he approves the fight against global warming. And also, I don't know if you knew, but he also spent time in organizations to humanitarian help. And if you look for the logos of these organizations, then you will be quite surprised. Also, he was director of the Developing Communities Project, a religious organization that originally counted with 8 Catholic parishes. But is he Catholic? How can this be? And he also has encouraged Democrats to get closer to evangelicals and other religious groups. See how he also is working towards an ecumenical movement. Here, Berlusconi says that the elected president is tanned. This comment was quite talked about. Then it says the public opinion has shown positive to Obama and that he is considered a messiah, and they believe that the hopes deposited in him will be made true. These words are from Berlusconi, and which one of these words would you take as more important from all the words said in the highlighted phrase? And they say Messiah. And this from a news report, it says Obama, the climate messiah. Gosh, the same word once again, and this time not from a politician. Now from the newspaper El País, it says, I admit that the longed for messiah has some style. Once again the same word is repeated, messiah. Now what is a messiah? It is someone that's been sent, someone that is being expected. And what does he do? Well, he saves the world, basically, doesn't he? He gives salvation. That's the Christ. Well, curiously, these attributes are being put on Obama. And if the politicians are saying it and the newspapers are saying it, then it must be true. Because everybody obeys to these informations. Well, more from El País. Suddenly, it is proclaimed the arrival of a Messiah in the whole world. And at the end it says, only a miracle will fix that. Messiah, once again. So we know that Messiah is someone that is sent by God and cannot be in error because the Messiah is God himself as well. And look at this article, it says Obama apologizes for a spiritualistic reference to the ex-First Lady Nancy Reagan. In one of my conferences, I presented this precisely. Nancy Reagan was famous for speaking through spiritualistic methods with a wife of an ex-president of the United States. That, of course, was dead for many years. And it is also said that Ronald Reagan didn't make any decisions before consulting with his wife and the spirits that communicated with her. Apparently Obama made a joke quoting one of these spiritualistic references of Nancy Reagan, and automatically he received quite a lot of pressure to apologize in public, because these things aren't quite well seen at the moment, not just yet. And this was his first slip in public. I don't know if you've read or heard about Jesus Christ having to apologize for something that he said, because he slipped. And here we have again these two characters. And now we're going to take a look just at Joseph Biden. And as you can see here, where it's surrounded in red, his religion is Roman Catholic. This man is the Vice President at this time of the United States. And it's not bad, is it, in such a Protestant country to have a Vice President that is Catholic. There has been a Catholic president before. Do you know who he was? He was Kennedy. And you also saw how much he lasted. There's a lot of story behind Kennedy, but anyway, we'll leave it for another moment. What I'm interested in is the connection between Obama and something else. We've seen him working with Catholic groups. We can see that his vice president is Roman Catholic. And now we're going to see how Obama can have really tense relations with the Vatican. Here is a message from the Pope to Obama, so that all North Americans, along with all the people of goodwill, can build a world of peace and justice, said by the spokesman of the Vatican, Federico Lombardi. Also, the Archbishop Raymond Burke, the American religious of higher range in the Vatican, said in September that the Democrats' Party runs the risk of transforming definitively in a party of death by its politics surrounding abortion and other bioethical issues. They've already started to make a path. Some groups, like Catholic Democrats, supported Obama with the argument that his party supported social programs with the augment of the minimum salary that supported women to have more children. This argument seemed to help conquer some Catholic voters, the same way it occurred with the election of Joseph Biden as candidate to vice presidency. Biden, that will become the first Catholic vice president in the history of the United States, once said, "To the next Republican that says that I am not religious, I will make him swallow my rosary." Well, I guess that's his definition of Catholic. And he was asked in 2005, 2 years before when he wasn't congressist, if he would voted in favour of the war of Iraq, even knowing that there weren't any weapons of mass destruction. Emmanuel responded that yes, I still believe that getting rid of Saddam was good, okay? And who is this Emmanuel? Well, he was one of the first people chosen to be in the group of people that charge with Obama in the presidency. And precisely we can see that this man, Rahm Emanuel, was one of the people most in favour of the war to Iraq, and now he's the new chief of staff, chosen by Obama. The man closest to the new president of the United States will be Rahm Emanuel, of 49 years, son of an Israeli. Emanuel speaks Hebrew fluently and was voluntary in the army of Israel in the First War of the Gulf. He never served in the regular army of no country, although he lost a finger in an accident when working in a restaurant of fast food in his youth. Despite this, in Washington there's a rumor that says that he was hit by a Syrian missile when supposedly he was with the Israeli army at the border of the country. So you can see his environment, his surroundings are both Catholic and Jewish. Zionist Jewish. It's clear that my son, this is the father talking, will have influence over the president in all that concerns Israel. Why does the USA talk about so much and support Israel? It must be because of a common cause. We will talk about this in another moment. And here we have this man beside Obama. And now what do we have here? Do you know what this is? Have you ever seen this image before? See where this is. This is the Waldorf Astoria Hotel, Manhattan, New York City, 16th of October 2008. I don't know if you saw when Barack Obama and McCain had a debate on television. When they finished, well, you know, when there's a debate, then you have some tension and difficult moments, the typical. When they finish, they go to dinner, and it's normal to do it periodically, this dinner, when there are elections in the United States. And it's a dinner that, do you know who promotes it? Can you see the man that's in between the both of them? This is the Catholic Church. And precisely when they finish their whole act, the two candidates go to this place to have dinner together. The two candidates, they shake their hands, they laugh, and in the middle of them, there's the most important cardinal in the United States and the highest representative of the Vatican. You may think that this doesn't mean anything, but for me this is more than significant. Here it says the two candidates to the presidency of the United States share a gala dinner in the famous Waldorf Astoria Hotel in New York. So what's up with this hotel? They could have gone to whichever hotel they wanted. We all get to see it now. People that were at the dinner were legislators, members of the Catholic religion, and New York authorities. See how the Catholicism is always inside these reunions of power. And here we have the grand ballroom of the Waldorf Astoria Hotel. But what exactly do they do here in this place? You know that what they really do in this convention is ask for money. They actually collect money for Catholic organizations, and these people go there to give their support. And all the participants have to give a big donation. Now we'll see it. This is the building of the hotel, Take a look. This is the indicator of the different floors, the elevator of the Hotel Waldorf Astoria. You see 1, 2, 3, and some 5 pointed stars over there, and a G. Did you realize yesterday in a portrait of George Washington that we saw with his Freemasonry clothings, on top of his head was a G? That G is in the Freemasonry temples and it equals to God for them. It's a symbol to God. Well, it could be a coincidence, I guess. Well, here we have something else to see. This is all the people that have passed by these conventions through the Alfred E. Smith Memorial Foundation, which is precisely the institution that generates these encounters to collect these donations. Here we have some people that have come by these conventions in this building. I guess you can recognize some of them. If you want some names, here you have a load of them. Bush, Honorable Al Gore. Let me just say, there is a card in the IMWO game that I showed, where a certain character appears. Here you can see many presidents and candidates to presidency. All of them have been there to have dinner. But being there precisely means to subordinate the orders of the Vatican. And this is normally ignored by the most people. And more lists of people. There's all of them that you want. There's Winston Churchill, another important Freemason. And well, let's carry on investigating. By the way, the founder was a prominent Catholic. But now we're going to see something quite interesting. You know who this man is, don't you? Tony Blair. What happened to Tony Blair when he wasn't Prime Minister anymore of his country? He became a Catholic. And after that, after becoming Catholic, what did he do? He was a commissioner for what? Haven't you heard this before? This man was commissioned by the Vatican to become an agent to work in the area. You know which area? Israel. The area of the Middle East. Do you think these things happen just like that, or are they planned? In politics, things don't just happen without reason. Everything is more than premeditated. Take a look at this photo. Bush, Al Gore, and the man in the middle. And this is much more important than what most can imagine. And here are the donations, starting from $100. And here another photo. As you can see, the cardinal in the middle is a different one, but this is a much older image. On the left we have John Fitzgerald Kennedy, and on the right we have Richard Nixon. And both of them ended up being president of that nation. New York, the 19th of October, 1960. We have Nixon on the right, Kennedy on the left, and in the middle, the Cardinal Francis Spellman. Does this name ring a bell? This man was very well known, and his surname is Jewish in origin. The surnames that finish with man are Jewish. But I'm not going to stay with this now. Let's look at something more important. This man is Baron Avro Manhattan, who wrote Murder in the Vatican. He wrote many books going precisely against the Vatican, and he knew very well what he was talking about, revealing a lot of information and with data, very specific data. Let's read what it says here. Cardinal Francis Spellman of New York was the vicar of the armed forces in Vietnam. He was also the extra-official link between the Pope and John Foster Dulles, the Secretary of State of the United States, and also, therefore, the brother of the Secretary, Allen, who was chief of the CIA. These are quite some connections. He was active in persuading the United States to select Diem and support him as President of South Vietnam. He was made General Vicar of the Armed Forces of the United States and named the General of the Christ's Soldiers, which means that they were soldiers of the Catholic Church, in his frequent visits to the front of the war in Vietnam. As you can see, the Catholic Church was behind the war in Vietnam. This organization was founded in 1946 by the Cardinal and Archbishop of New York Francis Spellman to honor the figure of Alfred E. Smith. This was about that famous dinner. The building by excellence of the Archbishopric of New York is the Cathedral of St. Patrick, which is found, and take a look at this, where this cathedral is, between the Rockefeller Center and the Council of Foreign Relations. It is a perfect triangle, all together. To understand what this event is about, first we need to know who was Alfred E. Smith. This man of Irish origin and from the Catholic religion was in 4 occasions governor of the state of New York. But more important than that, he was the first Catholic candidate to the presidency of the United States in 1928. Did you know this? Being the Archbishop of New York represents the visible head of the papacy in the United States. When he summons the dinner in the memory of Alfred E. Smith, the summoned not only pay tribute to a Catholic, but also to his church. And this is an image of the hotel. And this man, John Jacob Astor, the creator of the Hotel Astor in Broadway. Who was this man? In the top left there's an image of a book that you can find on the internet to download, and it is titled The Satanic Blood, and it talks about the 13 families of the Illuminati that dominate the Freemasonry lodges that are in the world. And in these lodges, precisely, is the Astor family. So let's take a look at the Astor dynasty. The original founder of the Astor fortune was John Jacob Astor. He was born in Waldorf, in Germany, and of Jewish origin. This Jewish origin was hidden, and a good number of different ideas about the patrimony of the Astor was put in circulation. John Jacob Astor was a butcher in Waldorf, and in 1764 he arrived to America after staying in London. Although history tells that he arrived to America without money, and maybe it may be true, soon he entered a Masonic lodge, and in 2 to 3 years he had become the master of the Holland Lodge No. 8 in the city of New York. This Holland Lodge is one of the lodges in which much of his members have good connections with the elite of the Illuminati. And you can think, nah, this man is just making this all up, it's just to create a story. It says his father was president of a true center of Illuminati action for many years, the Real Society of Edinburgh. In 1788, Astor was a master of the Masonic Lodge No. 8. This is quite interesting, taking into account that Astor could not speak English when he arrived to America, and supposedly he was very poor. A man in the conference room asks where this information has been taken out from, and Victor responds that it is from the Satanic Blood book that he mentioned earlier. This is taken out from a Freemasonry page, and I can assure you this. Here you have it. And it explains precisely what we have just read in the text of the book. Here we have a piece of newspaper talking about the world and the Obama effect. It says, Obama, a friend too soft on Iran. He is as friendly to Israel as Clinton. Biden is known as a great friend of Israel. Can you see the connections? Vatican? What else? United States and Israel? And always connected with the Freemasonry. And the Catholic Church saying that you can't have relations with the Freemasonry, but they all join together in one of their hotels. And here we can see how Israel keeps coming up. There is an evident optimism in the syndical movement. First, because Obama supports the legislation that is pro-free choice syndicate to the employees that will allow the workers to decide if it is necessary to call for elections with secret votes so as to have syndical representation. Therefore, the enormous display of the Syndical Central AFL-CIO in favor of Obama. It says, "We have never done an intervention so big. We have spent $53 million with 250,000 voluntaries, and we will give 13 million votes to Obama in the 21 states that are most disputed," says Steve Smith, spokesman of this syndicate, AFL-CIO. This had never been seen before, the syndicate supporting a candidate for elections in such way and with such amounts of money. And who is behind the syndicates? The Spirit of Prophecy says it. Although there isn't really a need for the Spirit of Prophecy to really find out if you just follow the origins of the syndicates to where they were created and who created them, then you will eventually find Freemasonry and secret societies. The syndicates are no more the black beast of before, says Steve Smith. Well, let's see what Ellen White says. The time is fast coming when the controlling power of the labor unions will be very oppressive. Again and again the Lord has instructed that our people are to take their families away from the cities into the country, where they can raise their own provisions, for in the future the problem of buying and selling will be a very serious one. We should now begin to heed the instruction given us over and over again. Get out of the cities into rural districts, where the houses are not crowded closely together, and where you will be free from the interference of enemies. Well, this of course is not saying that the syndicates are no longer the black beast, because when there is a riot or a protest, who promotes this? The syndicates. If they hadn't promoted these movements, they wouldn't have even occurred. Of course, if they didn't do good things, then no one would be interested in their help. But Satan uses the good things they do to drive the people where the syndicates want to. And these people are the ones that are going to create the conflicts in our cities, much stronger than the ones lived until now. Referring to the part where she says to leave the cities, that is up to each and every one of us to decide. The trades unions will be one of the agencies that will bring upon this earth a time of trouble such as has not been since the world began. The trades unions and confederacies of the world are a snare. Keep out of them and away from them, brethren. Have nothing to do with them. Because of these unions and confederacies, it will soon be very difficult for our institutions to carry on their work in the cities. We are not to unite with secret societies or with trades unions. And the Bible tells us in the 2nd Corinthians chapter 6, "Do not be yoked together with unbelievers, for what do righteousness and wickedness have in common? Or what fellowship can light have with darkness?" This text is most commonly used referring to that we must not have marriage with people that have different beliefs than us. We apply it like that, and that is true. But Ellen White precisely quotes this verse of the Bible in the context of secret societies and the syndicates. Those who claim to be the children of God are in no case to bind up with the labor unions that are formed or that shall be formed. This the Lord forbids. Cannot those who study the prophecies see and understand what is before us? This goes for us that study the prophecies. Unfortunately, not so much as we should. And now let's see something interesting. Do you know where this is? This is Berlin. And who's that man? It's Barack Obama. The text says, "There is no doubt that there will be differences in the future, although the burdens of the global citizenship to follow unite us." He's talking about global citizenship. A change of leadership in Washington will not lift this load. In this new century, the North Americans and the Europeans alike will need to do more and not less. The association and cooperation between the nations is not a choice. It is the only way to protect our common security and advance in our common humanity. What would you highlight from this text? We could be talking about the whole paragraph all day. Let's see, common security. Terrorism. Why so much terrorism over and over again? People with fear. This unites everyone to fight against terrorism and advance in this common humanity. Global citizenship. Doesn't all this sound familiar? All as one, like in the $1 bill, but a lot more as well. What about the Babel Tower? Weren't they all as one? 24th of July of 2008. And well, what happens then in Berlin? Obama is not Kennedy, but Berlin receives him as if he were, because precisely one person called John Fitzgerald Kennedy went to Berlin. He did the same thing to do a great meeting. Do you see the relationship here? Because Obama could have gone to any other population, but he went to Berlin. This is not casual. Unconsciously, we create association of ideas. And they work precisely with this. They knew that the people would have the reaction that they expected, reminding them of the visit of Kennedy, who is recognized worldwide as, the favorite president. And now we see here the Vatican asks God to help Obama to respond to all expectations. The spokesman of the Vatican, the Jesuit Federico Lombardi. We believers pray so that God can enlighten him and help him with his great responsibility, said Lombardi. The spokesman says that he did not mention specific problems, like the global economic crisis, because generally the declarations of the Vatican Catholic Church are about moral and spiritual values. This is a lie, an absolute lie, but it sounds very nice, doesn't it? If it's God's will, in the next conference in Girona I will be talking precisely about this, how they do talk about the economic crisis, and they align it precisely with the moral and spiritual values, and how they plaster it all together. And here we have a man called Webster Griffin Tarpley, who is an author and a journalist, professor and critic of the United States, of interior and exterior politics, author of Obama, the postmodern hit, Realization of a Candidate of Manchuria, and Barack Obama, the biography that was not authorized. This man has written various unauthorized biographies with tremendous data, and the people that he writes about certainly do not find this amusing. And this is some of the things that he has written. The senior economics advisor of the candidate Barack Obama is member of the secret society Skull and Bones of the University of Yale, in which George Bush father and George Bush son and John Kerry are also members. Also, we have the advisor of image of Obama, Zbigniew Brzezinski. Those of you that have already some age will know how this man was a big influence in the United States, who was co-founder of the Trilateral Commission of David Rockefeller and the brain of the disastrous Carter administration. Also, his wife, Michelle Obama, is closely linked with the Council on Foreign Relations. And here we have Brzezinski, an American politician that was born in Poland. So if he was born in Poland, then what would be his religion? He was considered one of the most prestigious analysts in the American exterior politics of the world. He was National Security Advisor during the presidency of Jimmy Carter. At the moment he is professor at etc., and has written various books. And here we can quote one of them that was printed by Cambridge Harvard University Press. Freemasons, precisely. And now look at this article. A pontiff for the errors, Zbigniew Brzezinski. An interview. It says, some years ago, Zbigniew Brzezinski visited the Pope John Paul II in his summer residency in the Gandolf Castle. The Pope asked Brzezinski, member of the Catholic Roman Church, and since much time an ally against communism, to read the epistles. To this day, Brzezinski remembers the moment as touching and significant. He is a person of great strength and simplicity, although of intellectual sophistication at the same time, says Brzezinski. He met for the first time with Karol Wojtyla in the beginnings of the 70s before arriving to the White House. Now, those are quite some connections. And have you ever heard of Ron Paul? Who has heard of Ron Paul before? No one? Well, I can tell you that I'm not surprised. But how is it that you have never heard of this man if he was a candidate to the presidency along with John McCain and Barack Obama? How is it that we have never heard of this man if there were 3 candidates and not 2? Ron Paul warns of great change towards a world government with Obama. This man won the votes in some states of the United States and in small populations where he was voted as the first candidate. But he was not given visibility precisely of what he was denouncing. Because more than a politician, this man could be someone that could be sitting here right with us. Because he was talking about the same things that we are talking about here together. The congressman says that the elect president was chosen a long time ago to ensure the interests of the corporative elite. Who believes that Obama rose from nothing? I don't. You just have to investigate a bit and pull from the thread of his personal life. And you can see how other people that were aside him have been swept away so that he could rise. Well, this man was precisely denouncing what they were doing with these candidates. And he wasn't saying this with anger, because he was saying this before he was elected as a candidate. And he was warning how this would follow to the New World Order.
And here we're going to see something else. Bush and Cheney, 2 unexpected and uncomfortable cousins for Obama. And you can say, what, cousins? And the text says, Obama's Afro-American roots were well known. His father was from Kenya and his mother from Kansas. But until now, what was not known is the importance of his relationship with the 2 most powerful men in America, George Bush and Dick Cheney. A few weeks ago, the newspaper Chicago Sun-Times revealed that the legislator for Illinois and the president are 11th cousins. Both of them are united through Samuel Hinckley and Sarah Sewall Hinckley, a couple that lived in Massachusetts 4 centuries ago. This discovery at the same time implies that Obama and the ex-president George W. Bush father are cousins at the 10th generation. The connection also with the vice president advanced by the Sun-Times was confirmed this same week by his wife Lynn Cheney. Both politicians are cousins by the 8th generation, this time through the connection of Marine Duval, a French immigrant from the same years of the couple from Massachusetts. And even if you carry on pulling the thread, you'll find out something very curious. Not only that these politicians that are all in the elite, they are all related, but also you will find Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt, etc., etc., etc. They are all related. The fantastic panorama of Hollywood. Do you think these are coincidences? Or don't you think that they all belong to the same script? Well, the text in Revelation 13 says this, verse 11 and 12. Then I saw another beast coming out of the earth. He had 2 horns like a lamb, but he spoke like a dragon. He exercised all the authority of the first beast on his behalf, and made the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast, whose fatal wound had been healed. The Bible could not be more clear. If what we've been seeing until now is not the fulfillment of this prophecy, then I don't know what it is. The Great Controversy, chapter 38. The sins of Babylon will be laid open. The fearful results of enforcing the observances of the Church by civil authority, the inroads of spiritualism, the stealthy but rapid progress of the papal power, all will be unmasked. By these solemn warnings the people will be stirred. Thousands upon thousands will listen who have never heard words like these. I was telling you yesterday, these are her words. This is the prophecy, these are not mine. And this is what must be done, because this message is going to be said, without us or with us. But I would like to be there giving this message, because if I stay out, I know what is going to happen. And now we can read here, Livni considers the victory of Obama a medal of honor for democracy. Do you know who this woman is? He asks the people in the conference. And exactly, yes, you're right. She is a minister from Israel. And the text says, during his visit to the country, the Israeli people were impressed with his person and his commitment to the security of Israel. This is talking about Obama. It's quite something. Lively manifested that Israel, the main ally of United States in Middle East, wishes to continue the strategic cooperation with the new administration, the new president and the American Congress, and the reinforcement of the bonds between the both nations. The leader of the right-wing formation and one of the favourites towards the general elections that will be celebrated in Israel the 10th of February of the year 2009, expressed his hope that the election of the Democratic candidates would bring the peace and security to the region. Do these words ring a bell? Peace and security. And here the IPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, the main Jewish American organization. And you can ask, what does this have to do with Barack Obama? Well, there you have him as a senator in the Exterior Politics Forum in Chicago in March 2007. March 2007, more than a year ago. At that time, there wasn't any talk about him being president. An important image with the flags of both countries, each at one side. And look at this one. The same, but the 4th of June 2008. And now let's take a look at this very long article, but I'm not going to read it all. We are going to see a compilation of data referring to his speech, where he talks about his first journey to the Holy Land, and etc., etc. And you can take a look where I've underlined some important things. He goes along saying, for the peace through security, which is the only way for Israel. Peace and security linked to what? To Israel. Well, he carries on speaking and he says, our job is to rebuild a peace that has a true and durable security that covers the whole region. This effort begins with a clear commitment to the security of Israel, our most firm ally in the region, established in democracy, which will always be my starting point. And he carries on saying, peace and durable and security. He carries on saying, this won't be easy. There will be big stones that will be difficult to carry for the United States. There will also be heavy burdens for Israel and heavier for the rest of the world. But together we'll have a new start. Check it out, it's Israel as a key point for the world to go well, to start over. Israel. Could it be that it's more important than what is said most of the time? And well, here's the rest of the meeting of Obama, and he talks about Iran. etc., etc. Pakistan. He's basically saying that if they don't behave, then they're going to be punished as well. And theoretically, this is a man of peace. He mentions Lisboa as well, peace and security. This is the fourth time, isn't it? The fourth time he mentions it. Peace and security. And again, peace and security. Sixth time. Peace and security. Peace and security. Peace with security. The people listening have counted 8 times. There is a community centre supported by the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Chicago and the Jewish Federation of Metropolitan Chicago. And this is quoted by him. It's quite a union, really. And, well, he ends up saying thank you. And, well, really thank you for finishing, because so much peace and security was starting to get boring. You remember the biblical text, don't you? We'll see it later. Well, IPAC again. Who is this woman? Hillary Rodham Clinton, also in IPAC. It's curious how all of these that are candidates to presidency support Israel. Or it looks like if they don't support Israel, then they don't get to presidency. And this woman as well, Nancy Pelosi, in the convention center in Washington. Who is this woman? And there's a man that in the public that says that she was something like the director of the Senate or something like that. And Victor says that we will see it now. We will see it now. There she is, Nancy Pelosi, the 60th Speaker of the US House of Representatives, the first woman to receive this position. And look, Roman Catholic. Quite something, hey? To the press interview on the 24th of August, Pelosi answered to the reporter to the question of when does the human life begin, saying, as a fervent practicing Catholic, this is a subject that I have been studying for much time. Now, take a look at this. 3 billion euros would be enough to eradicate malnutrition according to Action Against Hunger. 3 billion, okay? And here it says, the elections have cost until now around 4 billion euros. And this is the Messiah that is going to save the world from hunger and everything else. This is a shame, really, and they sell all this idea that politics is going to solve everything. We can't be so stupid. There is too much evidence for us to not open our eyes. And the time has come where we have to stand firm and say what has to be said. Knowing this, can you really not speak it out? And now a surprise. Madonna, a concert in San Diego. Here she is, clapping her hands in the air. In Girona I put on some videos of the recording of the concert. Now I'm just going to show you some images of her. Well, as you can see, she's just clapping her hands up in the air. And while she's doing all this, she says, this is a historic night. This is a super important night. We have to be happy to share it with each other. Do you want to hear more? You can imagine everyone in the public, in the concert, cheering out what Madonna's saying. And she said, you don't look too happy. And then she says, this is the beginning of a totally new world order. And in the recording, you can hear it perfectly. That's Madonna for you. And not only that, but when she finishes saying this, take a look at what happens. Just in the exact moment when she finishes the phrase, the scenario is illuminated behind, and look at what appears. The Messiah right behind her. Impressive, isn't it? But do you realize the colors of the poster? The graphic manner of presenting the photo? Before I talked to you about association of concepts, with Kennedy and the same way of doing things. Let's talk a bit about association of concepts. Something equal to something else without anyone telling you it, where your mind automatically joins two ideas. Yes, here we have Che Guevara and Obama. And I had an image, I don't remember if I put it in the presentation,
of a protest where people were protesting in favor of Obama, and they had Che Guevara flags. This is Obama's official webpage. Oh, look at this. In honor to the visit of Pope Benedict XVI to the city of New York, Michael Ian Wakefield created Pope, a parody of the popular poster of Obama Hope. Now you can see the association of concepts. Did you realize that Che Guevara had a symbol on his hat? And everyone says the five-pointed star. And precisely in the Catalonian independence movement, they have changed the original Catalonian flag, which is a mix of yellow and red stripes, and they've put on a blue triangle on one side of the flag with a five-pointed star in the middle. And if you ask someone that has a bit of an idea of the independence movement, they will tell you that it has to do with the independence movement of the Che Guevara, republicanism, and etc. etc. And here we have the comparison between John Kennedy and Barack Obama, both in Berlin. And now we're going to take a look at this. It says the interfaith encounter in Cyprus concludes with a calling to peace. Let's take a look at this. It says the ceremony ended with the signing of a calling to peace, proposed by a representative from the community of Sant'Egidio, where the nations are asked to build a new world order of peace. And this comes from Ingrid Betancourt. Haven't you ever suspected what has happened around this woman, Ingrid Betancourt? Sarkozy became the standard bearer of the liberation movement of Ingrid Betancourt. And when she was liberated, with who did she organize very quickly a reunion after her liberation? And the people in the conference are saying she went to Paris. I think she went to Paris. And Victor said, but she went to see someone. And they all say, the Pope. Exactly, the Pope. And it's funny how she is talking about, in this text, the new world order of peace. Europe Press, United States. Joe Biden emphasizes the commitment of the Democratic Party with Israel. And here the message from Al-Qaeda. I imagine you all saw this on television. They said a lot to him, but not many good things, saying that also he was denying his Muslim origins, threats against the United States and so what. And on the left, what can we see here? Barack Obama. And where is he? He is at the Wailing Wall, and he is not Jewish. And on the right, Malcolm X. Again, we have the association of concepts. Here it says, Al-Qaeda accuses Obama of betraying his Islamic roots by supporting Israel. And although we know what is behind the story of Al-Qaeda, and then someone suddenly interrupts, asking a question, and he asks, how is it that he has Muslim roots if his father was an Adventist and his mother was a Protestant? Victor answers, there's such a mess there that even they don't know really where the roots are. On one side, it is said that he was educated in Muslim schools, that he had studied the Quran, and even there was photographs of him wearing the Muslim attire. And then he was picked up and he was taken to Hawaii to continue his studies. But then you ask yourself, how is it possible that someone in such a humble position suddenly arrives to get such a high position? I don't think it's because they thought he was handsome. A woman in the conference says that apparently in the newspaper it was said that his father was Muslim, he had many wives, but he finally converted himself to Adventism. And Victor answers, yes, he left his Muslim faith to become a Christian. In Spanish, it is said that it sounds like a locked cat, which means that it sounds like something that has been prepared and it is not really truthful. And here in this situation, Al Qaeda, of course, has to participate, saying that if you support Israel, then we are against this, and this, all, of course, then causes the Islamic world to go against this movement of supporting Israel. And we must remember the letter from Albert Pike of the Three World Wars. And now we're going to see something that, when I found it, it really left me astonished. I had the suspicion, but I needed the confirmation. This is from the Cephas Library. You can find it on internet. Obama criticizes the people that oppose the movement of Iraq. It is a text that was written quite a while ago, before he was president, and we're going to see what he says here. It seems that Barack Obama is a 32nd grade Freemason in the Prince Hall Lodge, Prince Hall Mason, and he even asked for the votation through this lodge. Well, as you can see, he's no different from the others. 32nd grade in the Scottish Rite, nearly at the top of them all. And you may ask, can you be black and belong to one of these lodges? Well, yes, because in the United States during the War of Secession, the Afric Lodge number 1 was created, and this initiated the Black Freemasonry, where Barack Obama was initiated, just like Martin Luther King. And this statement of Obama being a Freemason was not to discredit him at all, really. It would be silly to do that, because in the United States it is very well seen for someone to be in a Mason lodge. It is even normal to put in a curriculum in which lodge you belong to. Totally different to the vision that we have of lodges here in Europe. After knowing all this, well, I asked myself how many Adventists have voted in this place. Because, you know, McCain, Obama, Ron Paul, if you're going to vote, then at least vote for someone that is going against all this movement. But truly, not in fiction. How many people have fallen in this satanic trap? You know, people that are preparing the Sunday Law Tribulation, and are people going there to give them their votes? Don't you realize that we can really get lost through ignorance? The text says that God's people got lost because of lack of knowledge. And look at this. George Washington's Masonic Bible. A Masonic Bible? And what was done with this Bible? On this Bible, with one hand on it and the other hand in the air, George Washington swore upon the position of the President of the United States. But curiously, this Bible was rescued once again, and George W. Bush father used that same Bible to do the same oath, and George Bush son as well, on a Masonic Bible. Now the only thing that needs to happen is for Obama to do the same thing. Now let's see something. This is the back of the Masonic Bible. There are quite a few compasses and squares, aren't there? And also quite a few half moons, also 5-pointed stars. So what is the difference between a Masonic Bible and our Bible? Well, between them there is no difference. The text is the same, but in this Bible, the Masonic Bible, there are references and allusions to the Masonic doctrine, rituals, etc., etc. The text is the same, and these are the Bibles that are used in the Freemasonry lodges. In the Western countries, the Christian countries, and they have this Bible exposed in the interior of their lodges. In the Arabic countries, in the Muslim lodges, they have the Quran. They always have a book there, but
Of course, we know that definitely it's not the same God. They do not worship the same God that we do.
que hay logias masónicas, allí tienen el corazón.
And what about this? Take a look. And everyone starts laughing, of course. It says, this is a newspaper cut. It says, Obama does a funny gesture to his followers. You know, this was sent to me by someone who is not an Adventist. It was someone who asked me for the DVDs of the conferences. He lives in the Basque Country. And one day I received a letter in my post box. I was very enthusiastic about it. He cut it out from a local newspaper, and as soon as he saw it, he sent it to me. And of course, you would say, "Oh, it's funny." If you didn't know, of course, what's behind all this. Now, the Great Controversy, written in 1988. But so long as Jesus remains man's intercessor in the sanctuary above, the restraining influence of the Holy Spirit is felt by rulers and people. It still controls to some extent the laws of the land. Were it not for these laws, the condition of the world would be much worse than it now is. While many of our rulers are active agents of Satan, God also has his agents among the leading men of the nation. The enemy moves upon his servants to propose measures that would greatly impede the work of God. But statesmen who fear the Lord are influenced by holy angels to oppose such propositions with unanswerable arguments. Evidently, not all politicians are bad people. God has people everywhere. And if it wasn't of these people in positions of influence, then all the restraints on the laws that would go against God's people would have disappeared. But it is also true that more and more there are fewer of these people, and there are more of the others. And eventually this is going to finish, and this is going to come more sooner than later. Well, on my behalf, I think that this is more than enough to know what is really behind this character and behind the manipulation that is used by the mass media, and how so many times we fall in their trap. Satan has an objective and he is going to fulfill it. So it is prophesied, and God will allow it. But then God will intervene. But meanwhile, what must we do? Stay quiet? You know, when you know these things, you just can't keep it to yourself. It's like a fire that you have inside you, that if you don't say it and explain this, you explode. And although they will want to shut you up, you have to carry on saying it. Because you just can't keep it to yourself, although you know the consequences that may occur. I really wish that you feel this. And I wish that no one can make you keep quiet. Because there are a lot of these legislators that will be converted before all of this finishes. And why? Because we will be the ones that will have to explain this, and we might be the ones that will one day end up in court, where these people may have the opportunity to listen. It is sad to hear, but it will be like that. There will be difficult moments. Let's wish to get the work done in the good times and not when the difficult times come. Well, for me, I think this is enough, but if you want to ask any questions or make any comments, then be free to do so. And there's a man that asks about the Masonic Bible, but I don't quite understand what he says. And Victor explains that he didn't bring more photos of the Masonic Bibles, but he explains that the modern Masonic Bibles are like ours, but on the front cover they have the square and the compass, and also some of them have a 5-pointed star that is inverted. And these are supposed to be Masonic Bibles, not Satanic Bibles. Of course, there is the Satanic Bible, which has the 5-pointed star that is inverted with the head of the goat as well.
He says that, well, you could grab one of those Masonic Bibles and read it through, and there wouldn't be a difference between one of our Bibles because the text is the same. It is basically a way to put Christianity in Freemasonry to mix it in with Spiritism, which of course is perfect for them. Here in Europe and in Spain, we can see or think of the Freemasonry lodges as something occult and dark and hidden. But if you look for images of Freemasons in the United States, you will find that there are many people that are just common people. And you will see also images of the inside of the lodges, and you might see children, you can see the wife and the family and everyone there, really. It's like as if it were a church, really. It just works like that. And a man says that he was looking on the internet and he found Felipe González and Zapatero, two ex-presidents of Spain that were Masons. And of course, Victor nods, as in saying, yes, of course, they are both. And then he starts explaining, well, I don't know if you knew, but the Freemason that I gave him Bible studies, he told me, this man, that, well, he has been in Masonry for 25 years. He said that once he came to Madrid, to one of the lodges, and when he went inside, he found himself with Jose Maria Aznar, another Spanish president. He said that his partner that went with him was quite surprised to see him there because the ideals in a Masonic lodge can be quite distant to what apparently could be the ideals of that kind of man. But there he was. Now a woman asks, referring to the different grades of the lodges, being their different levels of knowledge, to what point there are people that are quite naive to all this. How many people don't have knowledge of what secretly is behind Freemasonry? And my other question would be referring to those people that dominate the world, that really govern completely everything. You said that they belong to these lodges, and their families also belong to these lodges. That maybe their grandparents or great grandparents could also be in these Freemason lodges. Are there also new people that maybe their ancestors have never belonged to a lodge? Are they also in this area of domain? And Victor answers, yes, anyone really can be a member of a lodge, and if they see someone that they find worthy, then they will give him a higher degree. But it is true that there are a lot of people that are completely ignorant to what occurs in the higher degrees of Freemasonry. Another man asks a question and I can't understand what he is saying. The only thing that I do catch is that he is asking him if he can repeat something that he had already said, maybe in another conference, referring to an ex-Jesuit called Alberto Rivera, and he is asking him if he can speak again about this, and Victor says yes, if you would like that, then yes, although not many people like to hear this, and not in these places. I believe this is the first time that I speak about this, speaking it from a pulpit, I mean, especially because it generates quite a controversy between the leaders of the church. But it is a reality, and since it is a reality, then it can't be hidden. It is unpleasant, but true, and it has to get us in a state of awareness. Well, I've got into trouble needlessly once, so I guess I can do it again. Alberto Rivera was a man from the Canary Islands in Spain, and he was a Jesuit priest who, as a young man, was trained, he was educated in the Jesuit doctrine, of course, and at those times the Cardinal Bea, who was the Supreme General, the chief of the Jesuit order, he was the general because really it is a military order. It is religious, but it is still military. Well, this man, Alberto Rivera, he was educated and in a group with other young men and women to infiltrate themselves, this was their objective, in Protestant churches, to work forwards to ecumenism. But through which ways? Well, in that group there were some girls that apparently were very nice, and they were instructed to get close to pastors, to shepherds that were preaching certain things that were against the Jesuit order and the Vatican. And with their seductions, then they managed to make them fall, these shepherds, and of course afterwards then get them in a situation of discredit, following with the expulsion of these shepherds, these pastors. This way the church would end up losing all the strength of its message. Because of one human failure, then the message was tumbled down. So this was done by the girls, but at the same time there were others who were commissioned to introduce themselves in these churches as members and as students of theology, and little by little would finally become pastors of congregations, masters of institutions, to finally even reach the point that they were professors of others, faking to be Protestants when they are really Jesuits. So subtly they start infiltrating their own concepts and studies into the churches to end up changing the doctrinal theories of the church they're infiltrated in to make it get along with the interests of the Vatican so as they can finally converge together in ecumenism. Alberto Rivera said that he was commissioned to do this and that he was sent to a Protestant church. But he also said that the first member of his group that was commissioned to go to a non-Catholic church, do you know to which Christian church he went to? He went to the Seventh-day Adventist church. And I ask myself, why would this be the first church to be infiltrated? It's obvious, isn't it? Don't you think that Satan knows which is truly God's people? Of course he knows. Well, finally, this man, Alberto Rivera, managed to not end up very well. Of course, he was poisoned at the end. He died in Terrassa, in Barcelona, and he himself left evidence with his national identity documentation, where it says that he was belonging to the Jesuit order, he belonged to it, and then the Vatican, they tried to discredit this information, saying that it wasn't true, and they didn't quite manage it. There are even people that are followers of this man. Last week I saw information about a church belonging to the Cristo Rey church, and they are followers of this man, of Alberto Rivera. And he stopped being a Jesuit, he became a true Christian, and after quite a few tries he finally ended up killed. And he also said that you will recognize when your church has been infiltrated when you start to see the most fundamental pillars of your doctrine left aside, and they only start to preach love and unity. The concept of love and unity, if you've been many years in your church, or anyone has been many years in this church, you will have seen that this concept has been imposed a lot stronger, and it is good really, because love and unity is good, isn't it? But be careful, because if to keep this preaching of love and unity, the most important things of the doctrine have to be separated so that there isn't conflict and that the truth cannot be revealed. We stop talking about the signs of the times, we stop preaching the imminent arrival of Christ, we stop denouncing who is the beast. All of this is left aside. I don't know how many sermons you listen to, but when I travel and speak with other brothers of the faith, and they tell me what sermons they are listening to, then hardly anyone is really preaching about the signs of the times. Hardly anyone is preaching the coming of Christ as something that is going to happen now, really soon. All of that is being left aside, but on the other hand, we all have to love each other and stay in unity. And I repeat, this is important, of course. We have to be in unity, we have to be unified, but not sacrificing all this strength in the message. This means that we are infiltrated. How can we also know that we've been infiltrated? What do these people use constantly? They use symbols, logotypes. I don't know, but does anyone here have a booklet or something of any Sabbath school? See, can you see two flames? This is curious really, because I'm doing a compilation of images and logotypes of different companies that, well, Freemasonry is behind all of it, and also logotypes of Protestant churches, where the same symbology is in all of them, really. Where at the end, you don't know really where you are. You don't know if you're in a bank, or if you're in a church, or where are you. It is said that this logotype is done by a contest, but the same thing happened with the European Union flag, which was also done by opposition contests. So someday we will talk about the European flag, who did it, how they did it, why did they do it, what really happened for that flag to be imposed in Europe. But anyway, coming back to the matter, yesterday you saw the shield of Ingolstadt in Baviera. It was a dragon, and remember Baviera, it is the headquarters of the Illuminati, and the dragon, well, it says basically everything already. And from the mouth of the dragon were coming out some flames. And I don't know if those flames remind you precisely of this. Someone asks, do you have the image? And he says, well, right now I don't have the image. I just don't really know how the computer works, but if someone wants to open the conference of Friday, maybe we can find the image. But meanwhile, while they look for the image, you can draw a line horizontally at the bottom of the image here, and when you get to the corner you can go up to the center and then back down to the other corner, and you can find a triangle. And someone in the public says, well, this gets me quite obsessed really, because does that mean that every time that I see a triangle it's bad, or I can't draw a triangle because it's not good, or what happens here? Another woman says, so I want to make a sign for my shop, and I can't put a triangle anymore because it's not good. And Victor answers, no, of course you can put a triangle and you can put whatever you like. The thing is that if you put it without a bad intention, if you like the shape of the image, then that's perfect. The bad part of this is when it is used knowing what is behind the symbology, and it is done with the intention so that certain people make the association of the images. Victor is explaining now. I don't know if you've entered the web page, but they say on the web page that each line that divides the image has a meaning. Well, I sincerely cannot really find out what is the true meaning of this. I can't see what is this trying to say with these division lines. Someone asks why the need to change these images, and another one person asks, is this just in Spain or is this globally? And Victor answers, no, this logotype is completely global, it's around the world. Someone mentioned that it is like the logotype of the Banco Santander, a Spanish bank. Victor says, if we meet again, then I will show you more about the information about the logotypes. I'll anticipate something. There's a logotype of a Adventist school that is quite famous. Do you know the name Walla Walla? It is quite famous, this school. In one of their stained glass windows, they have their logo, which is really quite astonishing, because until now we just talked about triangles, and in this one, yes, there is quite an impressive triangle, but the important thing is what is inside. Do you know what is inside of the triangle? Do you know the symbol of the yin yang? You know the round shaped symbol with the black and white, supposedly two antagonic forces that carry the balance of the world, as they say.
But what is this? This is Spiritism in an Adventist institution. What is the Adventist Church doing a pact with Walt Disney for a hospital that will now be named Hospital Magic or Magic? Or is it that they don't know that Walt Disney was a 33-degree Mason? Don't they know that everything that is done there in Disney is complete Satanism, trying to indoctrinate children in completely the opposite way of God? What is happening? But the thing is that if we don't get serious, and I know that the leaders of the churches don't like these things because they take it as if there is a revolt. But the thing is that if we don't get serious and start denouncing what is wrong, what are they going to do at the end with our church? Someone in the public asks, but do you think that they have any idea of what they are doing? And he answers, we are infiltrated completely. If we were the first Protestant church that was infiltrated, and this has been many years ago, then where are these people now? Where have they arrived to? I can only tell you to search for the high leaders in this institution and search what is behind them. Someone in the public says, well, I find this surprising because I don't know how to search for this. How do I search for this and not end up finding nothing? And Victor answers, well, it is quite simple really. If you look for their names, some of their names, I'm not going to say this openly in public. If you look for names of certain people in the institution, they usually even often have their own web pages. They themselves say where they have been studying, in places where Ellen White mentions that you never should study, with Jesuits, etc. Does anyone think that someone that has been studying with the Jesuits for many years is not going to come out with precisely their head being manipulated, with their ideas being manipulated by these people? I'll tell you a story now in a bit. But the thing is, if you pull the thread of these people, if you carry on investigating, you'll see where they've been studying, if they've been places with a lot of philosophy, humanity, and all these kind of things. And also, I don't know if they just take us as stupid, really, or I don't really know, but in some of them says some of the people belonging to the Rhode Isle Club that is that belongs to Freemasonry. It is originated by the Freemasonry, and they don't seem to mind putting that information there. And these people are really in high charges, in really high position. And these positions are precisely the people that are taking the church closer to the Vatican, to Catholicism and everything else. And these are the people that are leading. A man from the public mentions that the other day he had spent quite a lot of time reading about Freemasonry on the internet and found out that two ex-presidents of Spain, José Luis Rodríguez Zapatero and Felipe González, were both members of Freemason lodges. And although these people don't openly speak about what their beliefs are, investigating on the beliefs of what is Masonry, then you can find out what these people really believe in.
Well, Victor carries on and says, the experience that I wanted to talk to you about was one that happened to me in Barcelona in a Latin American church. And also I had a reunion in another of our churches, also in Barcelona, and in both places, at the end of the room, there was a man around my age, more or less, and it seems that, I saw him that he was paying much attention. He nodded his head quite some times, and I thought, well, this must be someone that's just agreeing with what he's hearing, and that's it. And well, when I got up, because after me, also another pastor, Ricardo Martinez, also did his intervention, I went for a moment outside, and when I was going to go outside, this man suddenly appears. He came to talk with me, and he began to explain to me quite a few things, of which I discovered that he was not lying to me, about things that I know, that I have seen, and that I know that very few people have seen this as well. And I'm speaking about things in the spiritual realm. And when I understood that this man was not lying to me, realized that what he was telling me was very, very serious. He said to me that he had been studying with the Jesuits as an Adventist. He had little economic resources and asked for a scholarship. He was accepted in a Jesuit school, and he never said that he was an Adventist. But this man was very intelligent, and I realized that speaking with him. And it resulted that this man knew so much that they started to get him in higher positions, just as they do that when they see that someone stands out from the rest, then they start to elevate him. And he arrived to a point where he was commissioned to be one of the 3 people of the whole world to carry out the economic treaty of the New World Order. He also explained a method of study that they used with him, where they could sit him in front of a computer to study a certain knowledge, and they passed out in front of his eyes many images and text, but very, very, very quickly. And after that, he couldn't remember a thing or understand anything. But in some moments when he was asked a question that needed to be answered referring to the text, the photogram appeared instantly in his mind. And this is a study method that is used by these people that have been studying the human mind for so long. Method studies that of course we do not know of. People in the Jesuit orders, that are people extremely intelligent, know how to study and to show how to study in this manner. Even techniques of eliminating negative effects that have been happening in our brain to a reaction, where you need a certain time of 11 seconds to restore the brain to its normality. Well, this man was instructed like this, and at the end, when they managed to find out that he was an Adventist, just when he was going to be selected as one of the 3, they said to him that he could end up very, very bad, and they also gave him a check, a white check, so that he could put the number that he would want, and that if he didn't do it and accept that, he would never find a job anywhere. And he said to me, this man is from somewhere quite far away from this country. He said to me, I still haven't found a job, because everywhere he goes, even with an extremely impressive curriculum, just when they are going to accept him into the new job, something happens that at the end he is rejected. Well, this is what these people can do. And this man told me, after I preached, he said, everything, Victor, everything that you said, exactly everything is true. And this, I'm not saying this to make me look good at all. I'm saying this because this man knew exactly what I'm talking about, but from the inside. So we better prepare ourselves, because he also said that he knows that they have something prepared for us in not so much time. So if we don't get ready for what's to come, we are not going to know what hit us. And I think that all of you now have enough arguments to stay awake and pay attention to anything that can go against us, to be aware of international politics, because we must stay aware, because what is going to happen is going to affect religiously, but also in politics. If we don't figure out the movements of the different countries, we are not going to know in which direction we are moving. And there is still much to happen, so we must know about prophecies, also doctrine, but even more, what did Jesus say? He said, keep vigil, keep watch. And what does this mean? To have a candle lighted? It means to stay aware. Well, this is what we must do. And pray. Also pray. Well, on my behalf, I think this is it. If you don't have any more questions, then I think I've said everything that I needed to say. Well, it has been a real pleasure for me to be here. Really, you've made me feel like it's home. And even more, you have made me feel better than in my own church. And that is a lot. Yes, tell me, says Victor to someone in the public. Yes, I am interested in the crisis of petroleum, and why are they lowering its cost? And Victor answers, well, there is one thing. Do you know how Satan is going to be destroyed? He will be destroyed by fire and brimstone. That is what the Bible says. But do you know also what does Ellen White talk about this fire? The thing is that she talks about how this fire will be, and she explains that Satan will be destroyed because of the petroleum resources that are inside the earth, that these resources of petroleum will burst into flames. There will still be petroleum. The thing that they are saying about that there is no more petroleum that is starting to run out, it is not like that. The petroleum that they are able to extract is the one that is running out. If you know a bit about petroleum extraction, they can only extract 40% or 60%, I don't quite remember the number, of the amount of petroleum extracted from the 100%. The other part is left inside the earth. And this is because the methods that they are using of extraction aren't sufficiently sophisticated to be able to extract 100%. And Satan is interested in using up the most amount of petroleum that we can. Well, of course, he laughs. If he knows how he's going to die, then of course he's going to want to use up the most amount of petroleum he can, because he knows the end that is awaiting for him. So what is happening now with the petroleum crisis has to do with the conflicts that are going to occur in the Middle East. Of course, because the petroleum around the world is starting to run out. And I'll anticipate something for you. The thing about the climate change and the poles that are melting and all this, well, yes, the poles are melting. From one side they do, and from the other they don't. But curiously as well, they are melting because underneath them there is petroleum. What a coincidence. And now where the ice has broken, the naval transport, when it used to have to go all the way round the ice, spending thousands of millions of dollars to do this transport, this journey, now it's much better for them because they can cross right through the ice and the journeys are much shorter and much cheaper. And these commercial routes are already being opened. A woman asks, in which book does Ellen White says this thing about the fire? And Victor says, I do not remember. I say it in public. I have a really bad problem with memory. I have read absolutely everything and I try to stay with the best data, with all the data that I can, but I can't remember where is everything that I have read. I know that I have read it, but I can't remember exactly where. Victor says that in the CD-ROM of the Fundaments of Hope, looking for it there, then it might be found. Well, I think we've finished here, and thank you very much, brothers. I hope God helps us all to be brave and carry on no matter what it takes.